Football. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of the podcast where you don't, I do Packers fan, but it sure does up. I'm your host, Tom. Football Grossi, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting all the games in the Week 10 slate. Last week, did all right. Went 9-6 to give me a record of 84-55 on the season. However, there are many people, but there is one person who sits atop the Pick'em League right now, and that is Best Better with a record of 103-35. Congratulations. Absolutely crushing it out there and doing a whole lot better than I am. And so, yeah, let's hope things can go better this week. And starting off with what should be a fantastic Thursday night football game, we got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Bengals, there is room for optimism. Not only are they making some moves in the trade deadline and getting another running back in Khalil Herbert, who is saying, thank God he is no longer on the Chicago Bears. And even if that's not what he's saying, it's funny. So just go with it. But the Bengals offense has been humming along. Chase Brown's been playing well. Joe Burrow's been playing out of his mind. And of course, there's still going to be concerns about that defense. But the last time that these two teams met, it was a back and forth battle that went into overtime. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that again. Because taking a look at the Baltimore Ravens, oh, man, they beat the ever-living crap out of the Denver Broncos this past Sunday. Lamar Jackson having a phenomenal game. And yeah, even though the Ravens, their defense is struggling a little bit, their offense could be enough to send the kiddies back home.
Turns out the best defense is still a good offense. Where'd the tiger come from? The zoo. And you can bet we're going to sue the bars off of them.
And the Ravens did do some stuff at the trade deadline. They brought in Tre'Davious White, who I don't think is going to help significantly there. They're going to see if they can bring him back to his prime, but I don't think that's going to make a huge difference. I do think the Ravens need a pass rusher, but then again, so do a lot of other teams within the league right now. And this game being played in Baltimore right now, even though the Bengals offense is looking pretty damn good, I'm going to have to go with the Ravens to get the win just because I don't believe in the Bengals defense. And like I just mentioned, the Ravens defense, there's a lot to be desired, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's another shootout or a high-scoring game. But I do think the combination of the run game that the Ravens have and, of course, the weapons that they have, they should have enough to beat the Bengals. But as you know, all these divisional games are usually pretty crazy, and yeah, I'm going to go with the Ravens to get a very close win. Papa Kaka will be happy, and Kitty might go ow. Following that, I am so sorry, world. We got the New Jersey Giants taking on the Carolina Panthers. Oh boy, not sure if the Germans are going to be too happy to see these two teams.
Niemand bringt Amerikaner! Ah, ja!
Hey, why are you taking him away? Where's he going?
Whoa!
He is of no concern to you.
But he was just walking us through.
The Giants, Daniel Jones threw and ran for a touchdown at home. That's the best I got right now. The Giants are just not a great football team. They lost to the Commanders this past Sunday, and they're going up against a team that is also not so great in the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, however, getting a 1-point victory over the New Orleans Saints, and Bryce Young, I just got to feel happy for Bryce Young, thrown into a situation that has not been great. And you know what? For the fact that he can win this game, I feel good for the kid, man. What I don't feel good about is this game whatsoever. I unfortunately am going to be streaming this game, and I just think it is going to be awful. Both these teams are competing for a top draft pick. Both these teams need massive help and are not playing their very best. And honestly, I think that this could go either way. We've seen some nice improvement from Bryce Young these past couple of weeks, and the Giants, I don't think that they're getting better, but they're at least serviceable. And the Giants, hey, listen, they know how to win overseas, or at least against the Green Bay Packers. And I originally went with the Panthers, but I actually changed my pick. I am going to go with the Giants to get the win here. I do believe in that defensive line, and so maybe they're going to be able to disrupt Bryce Young behind that O-line. But overall, and I mean, we are splitting hairs here. I think the Giants are barely a better team than the Panthers. So I'm going to go with New Jersey to get the win. And honestly, Germany, I'm just so sorry. Following that, you got the New England Patriots taking on the Chicago Bears. Both these teams losing last week. The Patriots losing in overtime after Drake May held onto the ball for like 15, 20 seconds on the last play of regulation, then was able to get a touchdown pass, and they eventually just lost in overtime to the Tennessee Titans. They're going to be taking on the Chicago Bears, who... they had a rough game against the Arizona Cardinals, and Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron are just hoping they can get their team's mojo back this week.
Wonder Twin powers activate. Form of steam.
Peter, we got these in a box of Frankenberry.
And again, there's no real surprise here. I think Eberflus heading into this season was already on a hot seat. Their defense got much better after they traded for Montez Sweat last year. And their defense is still pretty good, but you look at that offense and just the lack of ingenuity in the play calling. Caleb Williams hasn't been playing too well, and it looks like things are just falling apart a little bit for the Chicago Bears. They're going up against the Patriots team where, again, Drake May is the bright spot of that organization. And I think this is ultimately going to be a close game and probably an ugly game. I've gone with the Bears the past couple of weeks, and honestly, I probably shouldn't have. And I'm going to go with the Bears again, and again, probably shouldn't have. I just think that the Bears defense should be able to stop whatever Drake May is going to do. And if Caleb Williams can at least find a rhythm, they should be able to score some points against this Patriots team. Again, I don't feel confident in this pick whatsoever. I think this is going to be an ugly, ugly game. But the Bears, if they want to have any hope for their season, they got to win this. And so because of that being played in Chicago, I got the Bears getting the W. Following that, you got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Bills, woo! Tyler Bass coming through big time.
Big time, big time, big time.
Big time. Slip the bass, big time. Slap at the bass.
That sounded like Borat.
Yeah.
Slapping it through the uprights from 61 yards out. And listen, Bills, it was a close game against the Miami Dolphins, and I think you've seen over these past few weeks just how crazy these divisional games can get. And the Dolphins, their offense definitely showed up, their defense just didn't, and they pushed the Bills to the very limit. The Bills are going to be taking on the Indianapolis Colts here, and the Colts offense is just... it is not good. They lost on Sunday night against the Minnesota Vikings, and whether it's Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson, there are just things fundamentally wrong with this offense. And I think it's a lack of consistency, the lack of prioritizing the run game, and the Colts just seem like they're just floating in the water right now, not really going in any direction whatsoever. I do have the Bills getting this win here. I think they are the better team. I think they have the stability at quarterback. Their offense could be way more explosive. And while, again, there are some concerns about their defense, I think that they'll be able to handle whatever the Colts throw at them. Jonathan Taylor, if they commit to him, could have a big game. But yeah, I got to go with the Bills getting the win here. They just at least have some momentum, while the Colts... they're just trying to figure it out. Following that, you got an AFC West showdown between the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Broncos, there was hope there for a second. Their defense, which has been really good this entire season, they went up against the Baltimore Ravens and said, okay, maybe it's not that good. They just got their ass kicked. And I know Broncos fans are asking the scriptwriter for a miracle this week.
People want me to do everything for them, when what they don't realize is they have the power. You want to see a miracle, son? Be the miracle.
And again, I like what we're seeing out of Bo Nix. I think he's a developing quarterback, and that offense as a whole is a developing offense, one where there hasn't been a ton of priority towards it in the past few years. You look at the defense, especially the secondary, and yeah, they have bolstered that with great players, including Patrick Surtain. But looking at the offense, that is where the Broncos are falling short. And they're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, who had a really close game with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and looked beatable. Their defense was still good. Their offense, though, still a little bit out of sort, but it didn't matter because at the end, they were able to grind down the clock with Kareem Hunt, eventually score, and then they got the ball in overtime and were able to get it done in one drive. And so I think you look at the Chiefs, and again, they're not playing perfect football, but they are still undefeated, and getting this massive lead this early in the season as we head into the second half is going to pay dividends for them. They don't really have to worry about their division except for maybe the Chargers, who are going to give them a fight, and I think the Broncos, being a divisional game, are going to play them pretty close, but I can't go against the Chiefs, especially in Arrowhead right now. Their defense is playing too well, and their offense, again, while there's stuff to be desired, DeAndre Hopkins had a couple of touchdowns on Monday. He might have a big game this Sunday. And yeah, I got to go with the Chiefs getting the win, and the reign of terror continues. Then you have an NFC South matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. The Falcons coming off a big win against the Dallas Cowboys. And I know that not a lot of people are talking about the Falcons and their pass rush. Like many other teams, it leaves a lot to be desired. But Jesse Bates is playing phenomenal football. I love their secondary. Of course, they have the run game. Kirk Cousins playing pretty well. But I've said this for the past couple weeks. I feel like the Falcons are a good football team. I don't know if they're great. I think they have the potential for that. But right now, they are good and, of course, leading the NFC South. They're going to be taking on the New Orleans Saints, who... The Saints... Yeah, you got to join the Panthers at the bottom of the league now.
Hey, how you doing there, big guy? You holding up all right? You want a soda?
Chris Olave suffering a big injury last week and thankfully was released from the hospital, but taking a look at the Saints as a whole, they just don't look like a good football team. They just traded away Marshawn Lattimore. They know that they're not going to be really competing this season, and that defense is not going to be better because Lattimore is out. The offense leaves a lot to be desired, whether it's Derek Carr, whether it's a lack of weapons, whether it's the injuries. Yeah, they are just a beat-up, bad football team right now. And the Falcons, I wouldn't be surprised if this game was a little bit close, but I think the Falcons should be able to get the win here. There's a lot of hatred between these two teams, and you never know. The Saints, I imagine, are going to play their best, but I don't think it's going to be enough, and I got the Falcons getting the W. Then, what could wind up being one of the better games this week, you got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The 49ers got to enjoy their bye week last week, though I don't know how much they're enjoying it because the Rams won, the Cardinals won. But then again, the Seahawks lost, so that's always something. But the 49ers are ramping up to try and make a push. Obviously, a little bit of a disappointing start for them. They've had a number of injuries, but right now, the 49ers are praying that Christian McCaffrey can make his glorious return. As he was activated off IR, we'll see when he's actually going to play. But they're going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are no strangers to injury right now. The Buccaneers, they push the Chiefs to the limit, and I got to give a ton of credit to Baker Mayfield and that offense. I know that Buccaneers fans are very frustrated with Todd Bowles, potentially could have gone for two, be more aggressive. I get all that. I know that the defense is a bit disappointing right now. But considering they don't have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and were able to put up that kind of performance on the road, man, like I wish the Buccaneers were healthy because I really like them this season. They're going up against the 49ers at home in Tampa, and I think the Buccaneers have a pretty damn good chance of winning this football game. My concern is going to be the 49ers getting a bit healthier, and I do trust their coaching. I know that 49ers fans can get very frustrated with Shanahan, but I think they are a well-coached team, and if the 49ers are able to establish the run and move the ball against this Buccaneers defense, I think they should be able to control the clock and win this game. They may be very similar to the Chiefs and just being able to grind it down on the ground, and yeah, I got the 49ers winning what should be a close game. The 49ers are going to hope this propels them to bigger and brighter things so they can get back to competing within the division. And for the Buccaneers, I think it might just be too little too late. They're a good football team. I think they have good bones, but I do think their deficiencies and injuries are catching up with them. And so because of that, I got to go with the 49ers. Then another potential great game. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Washington Commanders. The Steelers, they got to enjoy their bye week last week, and right now, things are looking pretty damn good for the Steelers. They made some moves at the trade deadline, getting Mike Williams, another receiver for Russell Wilson. On top of that, they went and got Preston Smith from the Packers to pair up with TJ Watt, who I think is going to play pretty damn well on that defensive line. And the Steelers are playing Steeler football. Their offense and their defense is playing well. Mike Tomlin's a great coach, and they're another team that, all right, I don't know if they're great right this second, but within the AFC North, we know how they play against their division, and we know how they go up against tough opponents, though sometimes they will play down to their competition. They're going to be going up against the Washington Commanders, who are a hot team right now, and they made a big move during the trade deadline, showing Jerry Jones a thing or two.
I'll re-raise, I'm all in.
But the Commanders landing Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints is a massive move for their secondary. They had the cap space, they had the draft capital, and now they have a guy back there who can really kind of shore up and secure that secondary, and you can build around him. And I've mentioned this before a few times, and I mentioned this yesterday. That defense, I think, is overperforming right this second, but to get Lattimore, that's not only great for this season, but it's good for future years as well. And the Commanders, they're looking pretty damn good right now. Jaden Daniels is playing well. Brian Robinson, I know, is dealing with injury issues, but Scary Terry and Jane Daniels have a phenomenal connection. They were able to beat the Giants last week. And I know a lot of folks are just waiting for the Commanders to collapse, whether it's about Cliff Kingsbury, whether it's that defense or that offense just not performing. And this week, I think they're going up against a very tough team. That Steelers defense is no joke. And quite honestly, I know Steelers fans might be upset about this because sometimes it curses them. But I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers to get a big win here. I just think the Steelers could control the clock here. And even though I love Jaden Daniels and the Commanders right now, I do think that Steelers defense should be able to stop that offense or at least limit the amount of opportunities they're going to have. As long as the Steelers offense can be consistent and move the ball, control the clock with the ground game, and Russell Wilson doesn't make any mistakes like he hasn't been, I do think the Steelers are going to get this win. Might see a little bit of a shock to the Commanders, but overall, I think these are two good teams right now going at it. I think the Steelers just match up a little bit better with Washington. And so because of that, I'm going with Pittsburgh. Then you got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Vikings coming off a win on Sunday Night Football, and it was not the prettiest game by any stretch, but the good news is that Cam Robinson, the left tackle that they just got from the Jaguars, he held up pretty nicely in that game. Now, I will say the Colts pass rush is not the best right this second, but I think that gives them a lot of optimism going forward because my concerns that I have with the Vikings is that loss of Darisaw and that being pretty significant. However, them getting back TJ Hawkinson should definitely help, and the Vikings were able to get that win. They're going up against another AFC South opponent right now in the Jaguars, and I gotta think that Jaguars fans are a little jealous that the Saints get to fire their head coach.
Tommy said it was my turn next.
And the Jaguars are almost able to come back in that Philadelphia game, though I would blame a little bit on Nick Sirianni. But at the same time, I think the Jaguars these past few weeks, they've played pretty damn well. However, with the amount of injuries that they have and the doubt in coaching right now, they're just not putting it all together. And they just have a lot of flaws. I love Trevor Lawrence so much, and I think that offense, what's been frustrating these past couple seasons, is that we really haven't seen the potential or them reach their potential, I should say. And that is very, very frustrating. They're going up against a Vikings team right now, which I think there's still questions about them, but I think the Vikings should be able to win this football game, even though it is being played in Jacksonville. I think the offense can move the ball. The defense with Flores, even though they can allow a good amount of yards, I think they should be able to stop the Jaguars. And so because of that, I'm going with the purple incarnation of Satan, unfortunately. Following that, you got the Tennessee Titans taking on the LA Chargers. The Titans, you guys won! It came down to overtime, but the Titans getting a big-time win. And listen, the Titans, they're not a great football team. They're trading DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs, which thanks so much again for that. And the Titans honestly just have a ton of work to do during this offseason. This season's already a bit of a wash for them, and so any win at this point, yeah, you just got to find some joy in life. The Chargers coming off a big win against the Cleveland Browns in which their defense dominated, their offense and Quentin Johnston looking good. And Justin Herbert, I am sure he is so grateful to just have a competent head coach for once.
I haven't been very appreciative of your training. I've been arrogant, and I apologize.
And that offense is playing pretty damn well. And the way I feel about the Chargers, and I said this before the season, I think that they're going to be a very solid football team that are going to be a couple of pieces away from really being contenders. But right now, they're making moves. And going up against this beat-up, struggling Titans team right now, even though they're coming off a win, yeah, I just like LA. I think they're the more talented squad right now. And so I don't think they'll have any issues getting the W. But then again, they are still the Chargers. Following that, oh boy, you got an NFC East showdown between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. The Eagles coming away with a win against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. We mentioned Nick Sirianni, and yeah, maybe still not a ton of love going his way, but a ton of love going towards Saquon Barkley, who's doing backwards hurdles, Devontae Smith making one-handed grabs, and that offense is looking pretty good and starting to match up with that defense, which has been very good these past couple of weeks. They're going to be taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who, yeah, they are riding the struggle bus. This is their first game without Dak Prescott, and it's against the Eagles.
Not like this. Not like this.
Too late.
And the Cowboys, they're going all in. They made a trade for Jonathan Mingo, who has 12 catches this season. And I think that Mingo can be a solid wide receiver, though he hasn't done great with Carolina. However, with Cooper Rush, I don't think this is the week you're going to see it. With Dak being hurt, that just adds on to all the problems that they had, whether it's the lack of run game, their defense struggling mightily. And even though this is being played at home, that hasn't really helped at all this season. I think Philadelphia is the better team right now, and I know that this is a divisional game. But without Dak Prescott, who's arguably their best shot of winning, I don't think they're going to win this football game. So I got Philadelphia coming into Dallas, taking care of business, and yeah, getting one step closer to Wildflower and the Commanders. Then a very intriguing game. You got the New Jersey Jets taking on the Arizona Cardinals. The Jets getting a big-time win against the Houston Texans last week, and they needed that win. And right now, the Jets, they're hoping to start a win streak.
So, what's your plan then?
1 down, 7 to go.
And you look at that team and the potential is there, but they got to get Breece Hall involved more. That defense has to be better. And you just got to hope that Aaron Rodgers can pull some magic out if you are a Jets fan. And I know there's definitely some cause for concern because you haven't seen it a ton this season. They're going to be taking on the Arizona Cardinals, who they've got themselves a win streak right now. They got a big time win over the Bears. I know I pick against them, even though they were my underdog team. But it's just tough for me right this second to believe in the Cardinals. And hey, their win over the Bears last week, I'm not going to say that's going to help significantly in terms of I think they're an amazing team, because I do think they still have deficiencies, but I got to give them a ton of credit. Their run game is looking really good, and people might look at Kyler Murray last week and go, oh, he didn't do too much, but the run game was working, so do not get away from that. They're going up against a Jets team that you can run the ball against. So if James Conner can get things going, I actually like the Cardinals to get a win here. So you know what, Cardinals fans? I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm going with Arizona to get the win here. I do think that Aaron Rodgers will be able to put up points against that secondary of Arizona. However, the Cardinals, and I know they were going up against the Bears, they had a number of sacks last week, so maybe if they're able to put pressure on Rodgers, they got a better shot here. But I'm going to go with the Cardinals to run all over the Jets. I think it'll be a close game. Arizona gets the win, and yeah, I just hope the Cardinals win this one now that I'm picking them. Then on Sunday Night Football, you got the Detroit Lions taking on the Houston Texans. The Lions coming off a big-time win against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field after a pick-6 right before halftime. Oh boy, the Lions didn't have to do too much, but they were a balanced attack. Jared Goff playing well, the run game looking good, the defense doing enough. And yeah, they are the best team in football right now. I think they have the most momentum possible, and they're going up against a team that I think is struggling at the moment, especially with their offensive line, and that is the Houston Texans. And listen, maybe teams just aren't afraid of the Strouds anymore.
Did you cut the brakes again? Yep.
God damn it, Charlie.
Why would you do that?
That's just what I do! Wild card, bitches!
What?
Yeah!
That's that.
Woo, good call of getting those brakes fixed.
And it's not all the Texans' fault, of course. There are massive injuries on that team, whether it's to wide receivers, whether it's to the offensive line. And I don't think the Texans are a bad football team, but I do think that we need to lower expectations just a smidge. Now, I will say, a win against the Lions would completely and totally throw that take out the window. I do worry about that offensive line protecting CJ Stroud. And I will say, if Joe Mixon is able to run against the Lions, I think the Texans have a better shot here. But taking it from someone who just played against the Detroit Lions and have watched a lot of their games this season, the Lions just look like a really good football team. I don't think they're unbeatable by any stretch, but the Lions, I think, should be able to beat Houston here. I just think they're the overall better team. We'll see if Zadarius Smith makes an impact replacing Aiden Hutchinson or attempting to replace Aiden Hutchinson. But yeah, Lions should be able to take care of business here, and Detroit, they get another win. And finally, on Monday Night Football, you got the Miami Dolphins taking on the LA Rams. The Dolphins losing a heartbreaker against the Buffalo Bills. And as I mentioned earlier, their offense showed up. It looked so much better with Tua Achane running all over the place. Their defense, though, significantly letting them down. And honestly, that loss for Dolphins fans, it might just be too much.
I'll have you know, I only cried for 20 minutes.
I'm so sorry, Miami. They're going to be taking on the LA Rams, who are on a bit of a hot streak of their own in a very, a very interesting game against the Seattle Seahawks, ending with a Matthew Stafford game-winning touchdown. The defense in that pass rush looking really good against the Seattle offensive line, which, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But Jared Verse has had himself a really nice season. And the Rams, I just believe in that offense. With Puka Nacua, even if he's not punching people, he's playing pretty damn well. Cooper Kupp being back in that lineup. The Rams, I just believe in their offense. And if they can have a balanced defense, they should be just fine. Going up against a Dolphins team who we know can score points, especially with Tua being back in that lineup, I just believe in the Rams a little bit more right now, especially after the sad defensive showing from the Miami defense last week. And I think that if the Rams are able to put pressure on Tua and force him to get rid of the ball quickly. The Rams should be able to get the win here. I think ultimately it will be a close game, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of points are scored, but I'm going with LA to get the win here at SoFi. And Dolphins, I mean, you can't collapse in December if you barely make it to December. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you feel these games are going to shake out? Let me know. And yeah, hoping I can have a better week than last week for predictions. But let me know. You guys find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.